Well, let's go.
Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Just Discourse Podcast. You are listening to Matt Delaharp with my beautiful co-host Max Smith. As with all of them, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. How you doing, mate? You alright?
Very well, thank you. How are you, bud?
Doing good. Today I want to start off talking about
motivation.
There's the adage of you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Exactly. Very powerful.
For those who are not familiar with that statement, it is the idea that the 5 people you most surround yourself with are the ones who will shape you. So say if everyone you... say the 5 people you spend the most time with are lazy, they drink a lot, they don't sleep a lot, all they do is watch TV all the time, they're complaining about their life, then you, by osmosis diffusion or just being around them, will therefore repeat those affectations. Whereas if you're around people who are ambitious, goal-driven, conscientious, caring, generous, kind, you will be the same as them from that point. And it's just a point I think I want to speak about it because I've been noticing it with people I see, or even some people that I'm very close with, who are not aware of that, who don't realise that, and they don't realise that by choosing to be around certain people and choosing to allow certain people to be in their life, they are not fulfilling their potential themselves, and they are themselves hindering their own potential, really.
Yeah. No, it's a powerful concept. You know, habits, emotions, and actions are infectious. So you know the people you hang around with, you tend to all become fairly similar. You know, if it's, as you said before, if it's, you know, people you go to the gym with, you know, if you work out with someone who's above your level, you're always going to push to try and strive to get to their level, and that can only help, you know, in your progression and whatever it is that you're looking to achieve. And that's why I always try my best to surround myself with like-minded people who are, you know, ambitious and career, or not necessarily career, but goal-driven in whatever they do. You know, it doesn't have to be a career, but you know, it can be in terms of, you know, the gym or family life, or you know, anything like that, really. As long as you've got that focus to be able to drive forward and push yourself to the levels that, you know, you want to get to, all you got to do is find those people around you. Yeah, and
the gym's a great example for it, because by its very nature, the people who are in the gym are people who are trying to improve themselves, which is a fantastic environment to be in for pretty much anything. Because I'd be interested to know actually what the statistics are on this. But I was listening to this guy who was saying that the percentage of people who go to the gym will be, and the ones who are there, not just like the weekend warriors, but they're who are consistently there every other day, every day, whatever. They'll have the because they're applying, if they're capable of applying that level of discipline to their physical health, they're most likely going to be able to apply the same thing to other aspects of their life. So whatever they're pursuing,
doesn't it?
Yeah, whatever they're pursuing, they're normally crushing it as well in the other time. Which I'll be really interested to know what that actual statistic would be.
Well, yeah, we need to try and get it up. But I know that I don't think it's the exact figure, but I think it's only 10% of the population actually regularly work out.
That's wild, isn't it?
So if you can work out 3 or 4 times a week, you're already in the top 10% of achievers, shall we say, out there. And because it's transferable, and I don't know what your experience is, but from my experience, you know, when I work out, especially in the mornings, I much prefer to work out in the mornings because it gets me ready for the day. And it sounds strange, but when you start to actually go through the process, although you exert more energy in the gym, you have more energy throughout the day.
I found that I was at a point when I was going, I wasn't overexerting myself, but I was going every single day. But I was only doing 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and nothing crazy. Like, But I found that just having that little bit of motion, so I was doing 5 of 5, nothing crazy heavy, but just compounds every day. I felt better. I had better mental clarity, and I had more energy because of it.
Yeah.
So the actual act of moving more gave me the energy to move more. So whether that's the case of you're just riding the dopamine from the previous day the whole time, I don't know, or whether you're just your body adapting to be like, okay, these are the energy requirements, let's pump it through more. Whereas if you're not doing anything, you're quite sedentary. You, by necessity, you're doing that. Perhaps you're already in that biological loop of just being like, well, this is my life as it is. I don't really do a lot, so I don't really need to generate energy.
Yeah. But so I'm glad you said about the loops there, because I read a book now. I can't remember who it's from or who wrote it, but we'll put it in the link below when we find the details. It's called Mind Hacking, and the basic concept is that you build up mental loops throughout everything you do from a young age. You build up a mental loop or a reaction to how external events affect you, and you build up, well, if this happens, will I react this way? And people tend to go through life unconsciously aware of these loops that they built up, and it's those, depending on what kind of loops they are. If they're negative loops, then obviously you need to change them, and then evolve them into positive mental loops. But there was a section in the book where it says that when you think of an idea or think about doing something, your was it medulla oblongata?
Oblongata, yeah.
That's it. The part of the brain that creates, or like the creative part of the brain where your imagination, you think, right, I'm going to do this, etc., etc., and then push on to go and do it. It will give. Say you've got a day ahead of you, and you're like, right, I've got to go to the gym, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, and you've got an actual plan that you've written down, you've read it out, you know exactly what you've got to do. Your body will give you 110% of that energy. Well, not, it will give you the 100% of that energy plus that's required to carry out those tasks. Obviously, plus a bit more, so that because if you did all those tasks and you got to the end of it and you had no energy, you'd be dead, wouldn't you? But the whole point is that if you physically program your brain and say that this is what we've got to do, it will give you that energy in order to fulfill it. And on the flip side, have you had it before where you've got, say, an easier day or something like that, where you haven't got that many things to do, and then throughout the day other things come in, and then you start getting stressed because you're like, how am I going to get this done? Blah 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 blah. That's he was saying that was what the concept is that if you haven't properly planned it, your brain sort of then goes into panic mode because it's not set itself up for the day to provide that energy.
So would to program in the day, is it just affirmations, or have you got to write it out? How did he say how to do it?
So the main part is really just a plan. Affirmations are more like subconscious programming that you're going to push into your conscious mind to evaluate and locate the things that are going to get you to your goals. But the point I was talking about is really in the mornings. I do it every morning. Is in my diary. I'll write all the things I need to do. So I'll have 3 sections. I'll have most important tasks, secondary tasks, and most important tasks will be the one most important thing I need to achieve for the day. Secondary tasks, I'll have 2. So 2 secondary tasks that could be either accounts or calling that customer to make a sale or something like that, and then I'll have additional tasks, which I'll probably have another 10 things on there, and they can be literally anything. Go to the gym, make sure you make your lunch ready for the next day, or get your gym bag ready, all like the minor things that you will do that will set you up for those 3 main points that you need, the most important task and the 2 secondary tasks. I think it was pretty sure if it was Jeff Bezos that says if you achieve just 3 big actions during the day, every day, then you will be set up for life. And it sounds ridiculous to think, what, just 3 things? Is that it really? But again, throughout the course of a work week, that's 15 things.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you develop that over
60
a year,
a month, yeah.
Exactly, over the months, the years, 5 years.
No, 360 a year.
Exactly, yeah. And you've tend to achieve, because most people aimlessly go through life. If they haven't got a plan or anything like that, they aimlessly travel through with no direction. And then they find the end of the week, or they live for the weekends, don't you? We all know a weekend warrior who he's just trying to do whatever he can to get through the week, just so he can have the 2 days off of the weekend chilling. And well, I don't know about yourself, but for me, it seems like a waste.
See, the week and the weekend's fascinating. That phenomenon of just trying to make it through the week just to get the reward at the end. There's two ways to think about it. One, I think that is while we're a secular society now, I think that mentality is a leftover from like Dark Ages Catholicism. Whereas it's like if all the priests would say to the masses, if you suffer in this life, you'll be rewarded in the next. Yeah. So this is a smaller microcosm of that. But it's like if you suffer for 5 days of doing a job you don't really want to do, which is probably more than 50% of the population, just to then blow out on Friday and then Saturday and then suffer Sunday and then repeat. Again, that's not a life. It should be you shouldn't have these great, like, perpetual unhappiness and then spike and then repeat. That's not sustainable. On the other hand, it is in a way practicing delayed gratification.
You could say in a way, yeah. It depends what you're achieving during that week, though, doesn't it?
True, and also what you're achieving from the activity that's causing the spike.
Yeah. So if it's just drinking or something like that, or whatever,
arguably not the best.
Your tipple of choice.
Yeah, or let's say you work 5 days and then on the Saturday you go to a music festival. You're like, fair play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about you, but I've also found as well, since I started the business, I purposely didn't plan things because I was like, well, I need to be there for the business, and then it was getting, I was going sort of a year, 18 months, and I was realising that I was in this cycle of just working, and there was not a lot of enjoyment because I didn't really plan anything. And what I've realised over the last sort of 18 months is that you're better off planning something, even if it's once a month or once every 2 months, a little trip to London or, a trip to wherever, or, a little, right, I'm going to go out for a meal to this nice restaurant or something like that. Something to look forward to. Yep. Effectively like a goal. Do you know what I mean? To keep your mind positive in a space where you're thinking, well, this is, I'm doing this because I want to get to this level, and then in between here is the little reward stamps, shall we say? Well, when you're delaying gratification, it can. Well, we discussed it on the last one, doesn't it? I keep getting to a point where I'm like, right, this is the goal. Once I get to this goal, I'm going to delay gratification all the way up until here, and then when I get here, this will be, the point where I'll be happy, or I'll be able to chill for a little bit or enjoy it. And then you get there and you're like, I could do it for a bit longer. Why not? And then you set the next goal and the next goal. And I did that for quite a while, but I didn't have the little reward, the reward weekends or the reward meals or something like that. And then it gets to the point where you're in a perpetual cycle of pushing yourself forward, and a lot of the enjoyment, you lose a lot of the enjoyment in life.
We're two things. One, I think this is absolutely right to set something like that, to give yourself those little goals and little rewards to sort of push you along. So these little hurdles. But I was going to carry on that thought, but I thought of a better one now. I think you and I right now, are in a very unique and fortunate position in time, because we are so far along the last 3 decades. There's been an exponential growth in communication and ability to express yourselves and everything. And we are at a point now where we can learn and hear from so many people who have made it, who've done the goal setting, done all sorts of stuff. And all of them have said that once they've reached that goal, they're not happier. and it's the process of doing it is what makes them happy.
Yeah,
So it's the whole thing that does it.
Yeah.
So we are at such a fortunate position to hear from these people and realize that what you and I are doing right now, this is the goal.
Yeah,
this is what
the goal is the journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what they say, isn't it?
Well, I mean, Linkin Park said it in the end. It was the journey is more important than the end or the start.
Yeah.
Just it is. It's this one here because you hear from so many people. Like you got Tyson Fury, for example. He became world champion when he knocked out Vladimir Klitschko, and then tried to kill himself because he was like, "What else is there to do? There's nothing else."
He had no goal or vision for what he was going to do after. He had that specific goal, and that was it. And he got there, and I assume he thought, "Well, this is it now. I've done it. I will be happy. Much. My happiness will be there."
Then you reach it, and you're like, "Oh, it's not here."
Yeah, that, as you said, the happiness is in the pushing yourself forward, the little bit, well, not even a little bit of stress, the stress that you put yourself under to get to the vision or the place that you're looking for, and then you've got to start again. And I think that's the whole point of the perpetual, because everything in life is cycles, isn't it? You've got the yearly cycle, weekly cycle, monthly cycles, etc., etc. And we see it in films. You have a hero's journey, don't you? And obviously there's just one cycle of that. But in life, really, it's a continuous cycle, isn't it? Once you get there, you're like, okay, well, what's the next goal? And then you start all over again. You start with the learning, the training, the understanding, then the achieving, and then pinpoint what you want, have a little bit of a blowout, as to say, of enjoying it or doing whatever you need to do. Then you got to get straight back to it.
Well, you could arguably say that each iteration of wherever the next stage is the own shortened hero's journey. It's just repeating it over and over and over, as opposed to just being the one archetype of their life.
And then each next goal or step, or however you want to picture it in your brain, you're better than the previous ones. So you've got more skills, you've got more knowledge and understanding of how to get there either quicker, or what we all tend to do, don't we, is we choose a much harder goal. And we think, well, okay, well, look, I 10x the last one.
Yep.
We said about Grant Cardone last time, didn't we?
Yep.
And it's a strong concept, and I think 10x is a really good level to be. Because, was it Elon Musk said, you should figure out a goal that you're going to try to achieve in a year, was it 5 years or something like that, and then do whatever you can to achieve that in 3 months. And he says, well, if you don't achieve it in 3 months, well, you still got 9 months left. But you'll be a lot further ahead in that 3 months than you would have been if you just said you could do it in a whole year.
That's Parkinson's law, which is anything a task expands to fill the time allocated for it.
Yes, no, that makes sense.
Which I've realised myself, that is just my brain to a T.
Deadlines.
Yeah, I need a deadline. I need like a short deadline as well. If I have a long one, it's just nope, doesn't work. Doesn't work for me. Yeah,
and you get other things get in the way, or you push it back, or
because I realised that I naturally will procrastinate, and so if you give me that time, I'm just going to fill it with procrastination. Whereas I was like, you got to do this tomorrow. It's like, fuck, I'm going to do nothing but this till I get it done. So it's like, yes, it's done.
And it's going back to the original concept we were talking about motivation, is I think most people think that motivation is like this magic feeling that you will achieve one day, and then that's it. You'll be motivated forever, and then you'll always push yourself forward. But I've found motivation again comes in cycles, and it's more about building good discipline and habits, and making sure you stick to them, so that when you come out of that motivation cycle, as long as you keep doing those habits, going to the gym, eating healthily, doing which, sleeping early, getting up early, etc., then when that next level of motivation comes round, you spike again, and it pushes you much further forward. I think we discussed it last time about the yearly cycles. I'm a what's it called, SARS disease or something.
Seasonal affective disorder.
Yeah, and I've noticed that over the last couple of years that seriously, like between this time of year, my motivation starts to spike probably due to the more energy from the sun or whatever it is.
Yep.
And then I know around the September, October time, it's going to sort of quell a bit. So that's the time where I need to sort of have a sit down and rewrite my goals and check my habits again, make sure that I'm fulfilling them all when I need to be, because I know when it comes to, you do get a bit of a, it's usually after December, because obviously you've got the Christmas period, so that's a bit like a motivation to get you to the Christmas period. But in the first couple of months of next year, you know, you tend to have spent a lot during Christmas. So you're thinking, oh, the weather's rubbish, it's cold, especially in the UK, it's raining all the time. So it's hard to keep yourself motivated. So if you've got those habits set in stone, then you just keep at the grindstone effectively, keep going round, making sure you're doing them. By the time it comes to, you know, this time, April time, you know you're going to get that extra big burst of energy to keep pushing yourself forward. And that's why it's so important to have those goals in place. Otherwise you're just aimlessly traveling nowhere.
Well, Will said it on the previous episode. It's not about motivation, because he had no motivation to go to the gym, but it's about discipline. Whereas he made himself go to the gym because of that, which I think, because I remember hearing that it was motivation is cheap, discipline is everything, which is from it's going to annoy me, I can't remember this guy. It wasn't Charlie Walker, because that was the guy who did Antarctica, but it's another guy similar to that who did he walked along the longest river in China, which took him like 8 weeks or something. But yeah, he said the same thing. He said that it's just I was not motivated to do it halfway through it, but I was just like, I'm here now, so I've got to do it. So it's the discipline that kept him going. And that's the thing. It's forming those habits, which are the hardest thing to do with anything, be it exercise or anything you want to do, is starting. Beyond that, it runs itself. Once you get into it.
And you've got those habits in place, you know. And I'll admit, and I'm sure you'd admit as well. You know, I have days, you know, even now, where I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, you lose a bit of that. That motivation's gone. You think, why am I doing this? Like, can I deal with this stress, etc., etc. But then again, relook at those goals, realize why you've put yourself in this position, why you're going on this journey, and that tends to give you that little spark again of don't want to use the word motivation again, because it's not really motivation, but it's more like
it's discipline, it's a purpose, it's a
it gives you the purpose. You're like, this is the purpose I'm doing this. I'm going to go through some hard times, and as long as I can battle through the hard times, then it will be the feeling from delaying the gratification to the point where you are is so much better than, you know, because I did it, you know, between the age of 16 and 21, you know, I'll be honest, I didn't really achieve anything. Absolutely useless. But I had no direction. I had no real idea of what I wanted from life.
Likewise.
What I wanted to achieve and where I could see myself in the future. I had no vision whatsoever. And I realised after, when I got to, I think, about 21, 22, effectively I'd wasted 5 years of my life. And we can talk about money and assets and all material objects and things like that, but the only thing, or the most valuable thing we have in life, without sounding, you know, too much of a cock, is time. Do you know what I mean? It's time. You can't get time back. You can always get money back. You can always get assets back. You can always get your health back, depending on how much you abuse it. But the lost time is the thing that's, I think, is one of my main motivators, because I realised I wasted so much time. Whereas I think how much further I could have been forward now if I had just started a bit younger.
But arguably, it could be said that if you had not wasted that time then, you wouldn't be driven as you are right now. So you needed to do that. That had to happen.
And that's the exact conversation I've had with myself.
That had to happen for you to do that. There's I don't believe in coincidences.
No.
There are no coincidences. There's just confluences. Being that time is a river. Doesn't matter whatever tributary or meandering way it's going to get to. You're ultimately going to end up in the place you had to be as well. So whether you were coming straight down them from the top of the mountain, and you know the water could have gone, oh, it was supposed to go this way, but oh no, the banker road also went that way, and it was like, oh shit, it got all muddy and horrible and all that sort of stuff. But actually, no, it's joined back again down to the river. And oh, now it's been refreshed by rainwater, so now the water's clearer now.
Yeah,
maybe.
And that's I guess that's more of an analogy for what you've learnt along that.
Yeah.
That meander where you thought,
different environments, you encounter different things, yeah.
And you realise you needed that experience to learn that knowledge for when you came back, onto the clearer days or the easier parts. That you could nail it more.
There's that. I think there's also an understanding when we're talking about motivation, when we're talking about dealing with the stresses and why am I doing this or whatever. We all need to understand that we're human. We're not machines. There's a nuance to be had there in the ups and downs of life. Life is not a straight line trajectory. Success is not a straight line trajectory. It's a jagged sort of trajectory as you go up and down. It's like a heart rate as you're going throughout time, but it's more, 3 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, 4 steps forward, 1 step back, and it's just this continuous progression. And we all get these days when you get down. Even Goggins, who he'll get up in the morning and he'll stare at his shoes for half an hour before he puts them on and goes runs a marathon. We all have those points, but I think what people don't realise, and we're not told that because it's not sexy, is that is normal. You should expect that. If you're one of those freaks who's always motivated, always disciplined, great, good for you, amazing. But you're not human.
Yeah,
I've
never met one.
You're some sort of alien, or you're a liar. Either way.
Yeah.
But to explain that, like I've had people close to me in my life in the past who would beat themselves up for, they'd be really good with their exercise, be really good with their diet, they'd be reading, they'd be stretching, then they'd fall off for a couple of days and they'd just be like crying to themselves. They'd be like, oh, what have I done? What have I ruined? I just feel awful. And it's like, it's okay. It's you have to understand that it's part of the journey. It's a roller coaster. It's the ups and the downs. It's all part of the journey. As long as your overall trajectory is going the right way, the pitfalls don't fucking matter.
And it's another cycle.
Yeah. It's the up and the down. That's a cycle itself. Yeah. Same as the fucking heartbeat is a cycle.
And that was another thing that the mind hacking book as well was effectively saying is it's all cycles. Is you have a cause and effect and reaction, cause, effect, reaction. And if you're not consciously aware of it, then you just go through life and it just constantly happens. You don't change any habits. It's all the same. You react the same thing. You get the same results. So it all starts again and blah 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 blah. But if you're really looking to change things, you need to change those loops. And the first thing you need to do is identify it. Is right. What makes me? I think he used the concept of cigarettes. Is he smoked and he said, right, so what causes me to want a cigarette? Okay, well, I get a bit stressed because something's happened. Immediately I think, oh, I'm gonna have a cigarette. Have a cigarette. Calms me down a little bit, get the nicotine hit, and then I relax a bit, and then the next stressful thing happens, and then he was just in that, obviously, the perpetual cycle of smoking, which a lot of people are. I think it's not as common these days. Obviously I'm on the old vape, but I think the cyber dick, the Robocock, as I used to call it.
Robocock, there you go, yeah.
But yeah, you have to identify it first, so that you can really understand why you're in this loop, and then you make a conscious decision to change it, whatever that will be. Whereas I did it because I used to smoke myself. When I was giving up smoking, a lot of people like cold turkey, all that type of stuff. I actually did what I did was, every time I thought about having a cigarette, I had a cigarette every other time. And then I cut it. So say I would have 10 cigarettes a day. I'd have one, in the morning or 10 o'clock or whatever like that. Yeah. And I think, okay, well, I'm going to skip out the 10 o'clock one. Then have the one
after that, yeah,
morning and 12. And then just did that for a week or 2 weeks, depending on how I was feeling. There's that word again, feeling. And then you got to a point where I was smoking like 1 or 2 a day, and then it was like, well, why am I even bothering? Like, just give it up, just get rid of it.
But I think that's a very important principle that people need to recognise if they're seeking to make a change. Change overnight is very hard to do. Cold turkey and anything is very hard to do. Yeah. You need to have an iron will for that. Whereas change via gradation, much more achievable.
Well, have you seen? I'm going to butcher it when I try and explain it. But have you seen? There's that video where they've got like a glass of, like, I don't know, cloudy water or whatever it is, and the concept is, don't try and throw the cloudy water away and put all the clean water in. Just start by putting the clean water in, and the cloudy water will soon be dissipated from the clean water. Then before you know it, it's all clean. So my point in that was in terms of like habits. So, don't go cold turkey on the takeaways. Maybe the nights out drinking or whatever, whatever your vice is.
Yep.
Don't go cold turkey on that, but just start putting in the good habits. Okay, I'll have one meal a week, which is healthier for me, and then I'll cut out the chocolate one day a week, and then just build it up. Before you know it, 5, 6, 7 weeks gone by, and your habits and what you do on a day-to-day basis are completely different to what they were 8 weeks ago. But whereas if you tried cold turkey,
it's not sustainable.
You see it with people doing, weight loss and the fat fighters and all that type of stuff. They're like, they lose loads of weight for 4 to 8 weeks, and then they're like, okay, I'm done now, and then they just go back to the same cycle of habits before, and then they put all the weight back on.
If not more,
exactly.
Yeah.
And if you, slide in the good habits while slowly pushing out the bad habits. The strongest example I can give is, do you notice it when the more you start going to the gym, the more you actually, I don't know whether it's my body physically craving it more, but you start craving more.
It's very, very addictive.
Yeah. So you're addicted to the gym. You start getting addicted to the positive mindset it puts you in. But also with food, is you feel more inclined to eat healthier, and to the point where you see like junk food and stuff like that, which you may have used to eat quite a lot. I used to eat quite a bit when I was a kid. Is you look at it and you think that doesn't actually tickle my pickle anymore. Do you know what I mean? I'm thinking I'd rather go for the the healthy option rather than going for the deep fried chicken. Even though deep fried chicken is good.
Deep fried chicken is good. But it's the habit thing. I've found that for me, if I want to, the first day is the hardest of any big change, and then after that, again, like we said before, going back to what we said before, it's
we love a bit of that.
We love a bit of regression. No, not like regression. That's my fucking train of thought.
Cycles.
Bollocks. No, cycles are habits. Oh yeah, the hardest thing to do is start. So if you have, the first day is the hardest, and after that you're like, okay, I'm on this track now. It's obviously I still have the craving there, but it's easier, and it's again not just an instant change, but it's easier. It gets easier day by day as you go along. I was thinking, now you're saying this, if we were talking about people who lose a lot of weight really quick and then put it back on, that must be the same mechanism that happens to people who win the lottery and then just spunk it all.
Well, yeah. So I've actually read quite a lot on this because I've always been that type of person where I'm highly motivated and I want to, build generational wealth for myself and the generations to come. Hence generational wealth. But I've also been in the concept as well as like, well, I may as well, because I've got good habits, I may as well buy a lottery ticket every now and again. Because if I win, then
that helps.
Well, it'll help massively.
Yeah.
And I would like to think, maybe it's arrogantly or not, that I would use that money better than, say, Joe Bloggs, who doesn't know what to do with the money, because they'll tend to go out and spunk it, whereas, I'll invest it here, I'll do it here. I know that money's not going to last. Whereas a lot of people that, say they're on 50 grand a year and they win 100 million, they, because their monetary habits aren't as adept as, the wealthy people in the world, they probably think, well, I can spend as much as I like every day for the rest of my life. And then it gets to the point where, as you say, they buy all the houses, all the cars, all the boats, all these types of things, and they don't really take into account, they think, I can afford it because I can physically buy the price tag, but they don't think about the maintenance and the upkeep and the fuel and all that type of stuff. And you'll find quite quickly, any amount of money you have, if you spend it recklessly and don't multiply it, it's going to be gone, isn't it? Because you can only spend so much without making some.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what your original question was, is they'll win the lottery and then just go on a massive spending spree.
Mm.
And then I think that probably becomes like a bit like a drug or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So like, well, I've got that excitement now. Now I've got to buy something else. Got to buy something else. Got to buy something else. I'll buy everyone houses and do all this type of stuff. And then before you know it, it's over.
Yeah, it's what Robert Kiyosaki calls financial maturity.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fascinating concept. It's really interesting just to see the rates at which people just like lose it. I think the one guy I did hear about, which must have been like 15 years ago, he was basically a kid and he won the lottery and he invested, I think, all of it into View.
Got the cinema.
Yeah. And I think he basically went, look, here's the money. He went, I'm gonna have nothing to do with this. You go. I'm gonna have a CFO, a COO. All you lot are gonna do everything. I'm gonna be the founder and just sit at the back and do nothing. You lot run it, and there you go, just in your hands now, and just bug it off. And I was like, fair play. Like that's a bloody good use of it.
And did it work?
I mean, before COVID, yeah, did really well.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I don't know what their revenue's like now. I can't be anywhere near what it was,
No.
but yeah, I think it did really well.
But also, I read the other day about this girl who won £1 million.
Mm.
And again, to most people, they think £1 million, that's,
Yeah, astronomical amount of money.
that's an astronomical amount, and and I'm going to be set for life. But she actually said it ruined her life because she probably went around and told everyone, so everybody thought she had loads of money.
Yep.
When really £1 million these days is not that much money. Quit a job, did all those things, basically blew the money in like 2-3 years, and then she was back at square one. But she alienated her circle of people by trying to, I can't remember what the word she used, but she basically thought she was a much higher level than she was, and then of course alienated everyone she was with, and then bang, straight down to rock bottom. And then she's got to go back to getting a job and all that type of stuff, which you got to invest these things wisely. And I think that's why. So they say that it's the 3-generation rule. Have we discussed that before in wealth? So,
yep.
So the first generation, drags the family out of the gutter effectively, builds all the wealth, builds all the good habits, sacrifices the most, takes the most, learns the most, and goes through all the hard times to earn the wealth. The second generation, they tend to have seen their parent or whoever it is go through all the hard times and create that wealth, so they push it exponentially into the next level, whereas the third generation has never known really any hard times because they've only ever seen the second generation, so they don't have the experience that the second generation has had of the first, to the point where they think it's easy. They think they don't need to learn all the monetary habits and the skills in order to manage that money, and they end up just blowing it.
I was speaking to someone the other day who's friends with a daughter of the owner of Bellway Homes.
Yep.
And
if anybody doesn't know what Bellway Homes is, a massive developer in the UK.
Yeah, one of the big Bs. And it was after you and I had spoken about it, and the guy who was telling me about it was like, oh yeah, it was his granddad that created it, and then his dad that expanded it, and also he's the idiot, and he's exactly the idiot, which it was just fascinating. But it's interesting because his friend who's the daughter is like, and all of their siblings have nothing to do with it. They're like, nope, we wash our hands of the whole thing. We're like, no, we're doing our own thing. Yeah, because it's just like they see what's happened to their parents. They're like, nope.
Yeah. Oh, so they're the fourth generation.
Yeah, they're fourth, and they're like, nope, we're out. Yeah, not touching it. Like obviously, if anything happens, then obviously they're going to inherit it, but they don't want it. They're not touching it if they can help it.
But also as well is, find the first generation who started it, he learned all the skills on the way required to get to that level. The second generation, would also have sort of learnt along the way, probably from a younger age, because, you know, say the parent didn't really start learning the skills to 20, 25, or the younger generation, they'd have been around that from day dot. So they, whether consciously or unconsciously, would have picked up lots of skills and ways of doing things and processes of that business to get to that level. But the third generation, which you can't really blame them for, they were just put in that situation, is that they come in effectively at the top, or, you know, a much higher level, and they have to learn those skills in a much shorter time frame in order to be able to understand and process what they need to do in terms of the business. It's like we said, you know, the journey is the goal. Is they haven't had that journey, so they don't understand what is required in order to achieve that level, what sacrifices you have to make, etc., etc., etc. They only really see the good times, so they think, well, I can just carry on living the life I've always lived because it's always been good, it's always been easy. And you, as we said, you see it in a lot of the wealthier families, where they tend to be sort of aimless and lost because they've got no real goal, and they're not 100% sure whether they want to continue the family business.
Well, as if someone were to find themselves in the position of the second generation, how do you then manage the third?
So that's something I've toyed with, you know, quite a lot. Because I'd probably, you know, put myself in that second generation. Well, you know, my father's quite a successful business owner, started from nothing, you know, council house, to a point where, you know, he's provided a, you know, excellent life for me and my siblings. And, you know, as I said, we've grown up around it, so we've seen the struggles, we've seen the, you know, the hard times, and, you know, the caravan holidays and all the, you know, when we can only afford to, you know, go camping, all that type of stuff. And what I've wrestled with is, and it's not very glamorous, no one's going to really enjoy this, but it's the part I've got to, and I think it's going to be required in order to sustain the third generation, is you have to live as if you're broke still. So, you know, live a modest life, live in the, you know, in a small house or something, force your children to start from the bottom, really, to build up those habits. You know, my father did it with me from the age of, you know, from a very young age. I always wanted to work for the old man, because obviously I saw him working, and I guess, you know, I think for a lot of people, or a lot of men, they want to, you know, follow in the footsteps of their father. So from the age of like 10, whenever I could, I'd go working for the old man, wherever it was, whatever I needed to do, I'd go and do it. And then from the age of 14, every summer holiday I worked, you know, no, every holiday, you know, Easter, Christmas, some holiday, I'd work for him. So I learnt from a young age, from not necessarily the ground up, but the work ethic required and the effort that goes into things. So you need to try and instill that into the third generation. And I think the only way to do that is to not be too flashy, stay modest, you know, potentially send them to, you know, normal state schools around, you know, normal people. Because I went to a secondary private school. So I went to a normal state primary school. Then I went to a private secondary school, and I think that's given me quite a lot of skills, because I can deal with such a range of people, like a spectrum of people, pretty much everyone. Because, you know, I can deal with, you know, your builders, you know, John who goes down the pub, you're right, son, do you know what I mean? Like, you want a pint, that type of stuff, all the way up to, you know, the toffs, as they say. And you got to learn those life skills to be able to deal with everybody that may come into your life, especially in sales and in business. You're going to come into contact with so many different people from all walks of life, and if you can only deal with 20% of the type of people you're going to meet, then you're losing out on 80% of the potential business, haven't you? So you need that experience in both sides. I think, in order to be successful in that way. So I think probably the best way, and this is only from my experience, everybody can make their own decisions in their own lives, but I think, going to a normal state school for primary school, and then potentially moving up to, if you can afford it, of course, private schools, because it gives you that big spectrum
Mm-hmm.
of people to deal with. What do you think?
Well, I was contemplating where I sort of fit into it myself. I mean, like we had when Robbie and Max were here, Robbie had the exact upbringing that you're describing,
Mm-hmm.
whereas his dad was very successful, but Robbie didn't know it
Mm-hmm.
until Robbie got into his 20s, and then
Yeah,
and then
exactly
his dad was
same
like,
thing.
"Oh, I do this," and he's like, "What the fuck?" It's just like, yeah.
It wasn't until I was 12, 13, 14 that I sort of comprehended that, Jesus, my old man's you're doing pretty well.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. I'm now, as we're talking about, I'm trying to work out where I fit in the category, whether I'm second or third, because my paternal grandfather came from Sri Lanka.
Mm-hmm.
He was an engineer of some sort, something like that. My dad grew up in a 3-bed house with 7 people in it. So my dad's bedroom was the landing.
Mm-hmm.
And he's done,
and those are exactly the tough times that the third generation, when we're talking about these, the 3 wealth generation, they won't ever understand. They'll never understand the, having to live in the hallway because we haven't got enough room.
So I must be third then. Could be third, but I know because he's had his previous career. He's retired now, but when he was working, he had a stupid career. Like working for like Prudential and Microsoft and Siemens, all that sort of shit. Same with my mum was the same. They met at Peru, so before she went independent, did her own thing. So they both did like stupid well. Both came from similar sort of upbringing. His mum's again same number of siblings on either side. But we definitely had hard times. Like when mum was out of work and then dad was contracting. There was months where he wasn't working, so there was nothing coming in. So I do recall being a time where they just sit us down and be like, look, the money's super tight right now, so we can't do all the stuff. I remember like even just the basic stuff like cutting back on like weekly shops, or just like I want to go do the thing with schools, like can't do it. Can't go do sports there or anything because it's cost to go do it. But
they're exactly the experiences you need to appreciate what you have.
Oh yeah, for sure.
When we talk about the third generation, which it doesn't sound like you are when we're talking about this, the 3 generations of wealth, is the third generation. They've never, as you said, they've never experienced no, you can't do that. No.
Okay, so I'm second then. Okay.
Yeah. So no, you can't. You can't go on that holiday. You can't have those clothes. You can't do that school trip.
Yeah.
They've never experienced effectively the no's or the not being able to do whatever they want. And I think that's probably where the issue comes from, because the third generation would have been able to do whatever they want whenever they want to.
Yeah.
They don't have to, as we said, learn the skills to be able to deal with the hard times, learn the discipline to be able to ensure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, hitting the gym, following a process that you're supposed to be following in terms of business, or dealing with people in the way you're going to deal with them. Or I don't like to take too much shit, but unfortunately in life you have to take some shit sometimes to, when you step back and look at the bigger picture, you've got to take that a little bit to ensure I'm still going to get to that bit, if you know what I mean. And so for that scenario is they need to, that's why I said, for my children, when I do have them, is that I think I need to, and it's not a thing that a lot of people like to talk about these days, but you got to make it fucking hard for them. It's the cycle again. Bad times create strong men. Strong men create good times create weak men, and then weak men create bad times.
Yep.
Which the whole
cycle. Yeah.
And you need that. And going back to, I'm sure other people have said it before, but I heard it the other day from old Tristan Tate. We're not. I know most of us aren't keen on them. But again, I always like to put a disclaimer. I don't know them. I've never met them. I've never had any real dealings with them, so I can't comment on my opinions of who they are or how they are. All I can do is take away information from them, which I think has helped. And he effectively said, you know, for my sons, that they're going to have it hard to understand the, you know, in life that it's not easy. That you've got to be tough, mentally, physically, emotionally, in order to fight through, you know, difficulties in life. So if you have it too easy, then of course, you know, we see it these days. There's too many people out there that have it far too easy, to the point where they don't really ever push themselves forward to achieve something. And was it Jordan Peterson that says it's a man's duty to be able to bear the weight of responsibility, not only for himself but for his family, his wife, his children, and his community as a whole. And you've got to try and find the biggest burden you can and bear it effectively.
That's a beautiful statement. I think that's a beautiful point to end on. That was very good.
Excellent.
Well, a pleasure as always, my friend. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Nice to see you as always, Matt.
As always. Thank you everyone for listening. As you know the drill, like and subscribe. As with all of this, I will see you guys next time.
Take care.
Thank you.